All right. I want to thank you everybody for coming back after our short break. Next, I would like to introduce Ken Hui. He is our VP of membership from the San Antonio Lodge. And he will be talking about how San Antonio worked with local law enforcement to create an agreement to implement Section 3 of the COVID-19 Hate Crime Act. So Ken, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Melanie. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. So again, before we start, just a full disclosure, I am not a lawyer. I have no formal training in this area, so please consider me William Hung in this. But I wanted to share with you what the process was that the San Antonio Lodge went through to create Project No Hate. Okay, let me go and just switch some things around here. Okay. All right. So again, my name is Ken Hui, and our Lodge president is Christina Liu. And I wish she could be here, but she's tied up at work. And I wanted to let folks know that without her support, we could not have gotten this done. Okay. So for us, our story started back in March of 2020. And this is when one of our own members was attacked at his place of business by someone who was accusing him of bringing in the coronavirus to San Antonio. And the attack was so severe that he broke his wrist and was hospitalized for a week. And even today, he does not have full use of his hand, unfortunately. So again, that started back in March of 2020. Then in April of 2020, not 2021, April of 2020, we got a report that one of our local businesses decided they're going to put up a sign that says, you can see it, it says, "Don't buy Chinese, buy American." So this is when we started seeing a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment, not just in San Antonio, but nationwide. And so I got wind of this around 4 in the afternoon. And by 7 o'clock, I was getting calls on the mayor from a couple of city council members saying, no, this is not going to stand. And we were contacted by our friends at the Chamber of Commerce and the Texas Restaurant Association. Now, I tried to contact the owner of Chester's Hamburger, but he never returned my call. And I sent an email to say, hey, you might reconsider doing this, and perhaps we can have a conversation. And he never replied. And a couple of days later, there was a lot of bad feedback on the sign, and he took the sign down, or took the message down. So again, we start seeing anti-Chinese sentiments. And so by May, again, it's 2020, not 2021. By May 9th, the city council approved a resolution that denounced the use of Chinese virus to describe COVID-19 or any hate expressions of hate or bigotry. So that was one of the first anti-hate resolutions that was passed by a city in the United States. And just by way of trivia, it's can you guys name the city that has an Asian American mayor? The top 10 city in the US that has Asian American mayor? If you don't know the answer, it's San Antonio. Ron Nirenberg is half Filipino and half Jewish. So again, with the growing sentiments of anti-Asian hate, and we work with our friends in the Jewish community, we participated in a Unity in Diversity panel where we talked about hate that's happening to the Asian community, talked about hate with the Jewish community, and what is it that we can do to help this. So again, we're trying to get the word out, just bring up an awareness. And then we started seeing stories out of, the West Coast and East Coast, like 150% increase in hate in 2020. And then we started seeing information about, hey, you need to report your hate crimes or hate incidents. And that got us thinking, wow, what is the difference between a hate crime and hate incident? Because again, because someone looks at me ugly, do I report that? And what happens to that, right? I mean, does someone get arrested for looking at something, somebody ugly or calling somebody a bad name? So again, we started having conversations about, well, how do we make this, reporting of hate and hate crimes credible? Then March 14, 2021, one of our local ramen restaurants was spray painted with hate graffiti, as you can see there. And that got national attention, and which was horrible. But what didn't get attention was that the neighbors came and cleaned off all the graffiti at the restaurant the very following day. So again, we're seeing, look, the trend line is going up. Then on the 16th of March, 2021, we had the 8 women that were killed in Atlanta. And that really put things in a very high-speed path. A couple of days later, our lodge president on the 18th of March participated in a press conference where, if you see a gentleman on the left side of the screen, his name is Joe Gonzalez. He is our Bexar County Criminal District Attorney. He came out along with other county and city officials to denounce hate and hate crimes against Asians. And you can see there, it wasn't just the Chinese or the Southeast Asians, but we also included in our press conference South Asians and all the other hates, all the other ethnic groups into that press conference. Then a couple of days later, there was a rally to denounce, a vigil actually, to denounce hate crimes against Asians. And that was very well attended. As you can see there, again, lots of different groups of people coming together in this vigil. So we got a call from the FBI agent in charge and says, hey, why don't you come and talk to us? So, okay, great. So in preparing for that meeting, I went on their website and I started looking up, well, let's see what kind of data they have, because some of you know my background. I'm a retired engineer, chief engineer for 4 cyber weapon systems. So, I like to go into meetings to be well prepared. So I'm looking at hate crime data for Bexar County, San Antonio. I was like, okay, I got it. I think I talk reasonably well. So we met with the Chris Combs, the special agent in charge of the San Antonio, Austin area. And in this presentation, he talked about what the FBI does and what statutes the FBI works within that's related to hate crimes. And then he said, oh, and there were no hate crimes in Bexar County and San Antonio in 2020. So I blurted out, well, that's wrong, because I know for a fact that one of my members was attacked. And during the attack, the guy was accusing my member of bringing the coronavirus to San Antonio. And the guy spent 6 days in hospital. And his perpetrators, they were arrested. So how could this not have been on this radar? Why did he say there were no hate crimes in San Antonio or Bexar County in 2020? That didn't sit well with me. So let me go back to this. So we started having conversations with our organization and Asian organizations in San Antonio, and met with the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce Central Texas region, Yoli Moy and her group. And we said, you know what, this doesn't sound right. Something is not happening. As you know, for the federal government, if you don't get good data, you don't get funding, you don't get programs. So we said, how do we work this? How can we help make sure that we get good data into the system? And lo and behold, 20 May 2021, President Biden signs the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. And again, you have their Representative Grace Ming, who was with us yesterday. at our convention, one of those convention sessions. So she sponsored that bill from the House. So this is good, right? So I poured through the act to understand what is it telling us? What is it saying in there? Because, if you've never looked at a congressional act, you should try. It's a load of fun. So after taking apart the act and reformatting it so that a normal human being can read it, I was able to put some plans together. And then on the 31st of May, we had a rally against hate in San Antonio. And again, if you see there, again, what I'm trying to convey is that every one of our rallies, every one of our events, we've included our friends like, LULAC, NAACP, the Jewish Council, the Filipino groups, the Vietnamese groups, the Muslim groups, all in this conversation, all together fighting this hate. And if you haven't figured it by now, San Antonio is the only top 10 city that has a Asian American mayor. And there he is. So after going through the act, we said, you know what? There is, and actually it's section 5, not section 3. So I, provided wrong information to Melanie. So section 5 talks about implementation of this COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. And what I did was I put together a couple of briefings to go to our sheriff, Javier Salazar, and also to William McManus, who's our SAPD, with the intent that, hey, look, we understand within the act, there are things that we can do together. So I briefed them on the 7th of June, that's Sheriff Salazar, on the 7th of June, and then I briefed Chief McManus on the 17th of June. But before I go into that, I want to talk a little bit about organization and how we gathered the forces to work this. So everybody here knows how we fit with the national CACA. We're one of 20 chapters. But within San Antonio, we are one of 25 member organizations under the Asian American Alliance of San Antonio. And that alliance was formed in 2015. We currently have 25 Asian American organizations, and these are the largest and the most influential organizations in San Antonio. So for us to get anything done and done quickly, we needed to bring in all the forces of the Asian American community behind us. So with that, we put together a briefing. And just kind of brief, if you haven't seen the act, I'll try to summarize it for you. What the act calls for is DOJ is going to designate an officer to review the state of hate crimes. And then the AG is going to issue some guidance on establishing online reporting of hate crimes and incidents, collect data, expand public education campaigns, okay? But part of the act says, hey, we're going to allocate some money for grants that will help local law enforcement or state local enforcement in adopting policies for how to identify, investigate, and report hate crimes, to develop a standardized system for collecting this, and establishing a unit that specializes in identifying, investigating, and reporting hate crimes, and then to also engage in community relations. That includes establishing a liaison, conducting public meetings, and providing hate crime training. So when we looked at this, we said, great, this is fantastic. We're not very good with demonstrations. We're not very good with rallies. But what we are good at is writing, doing administrivia, right? And we felt that partnering with our local law enforcement agencies would create a much more durable solution to hate crimes. And, during Rick's presentation earlier, we talked about hate incidents and all that. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's very difficult to legislate the hearts of men. You can't legislate dirty looks, but what you can legislate crimes, right? So what we decided to do collectively was to establish a partnership with our local law enforcement to assist them in reviewing the policies and systems. And we also want to be able to have an opportunity to provide feedback to them of, yeah, this is what we think you're doing right. This looks like we could use some, you could use some help here. And then also to facilitate our local law enforcement agencies to engage with the Asian community so that we can convey what the impacts of hate crimes are, what services are available to our community, and to facilitate these public meetings. So, what we've done so far is we've gone through and met with the deputies at the BCSO to better understand the process. Remember, I said we're not law enforcement people, right? I mean, the only law enforcement thing I know is what I see on TV. So it was for us to better understand what they were trying to do. So remember I said, my background as an engineer is I was a chief engineer of cyber weapon systems. So part of that is doing total systems analysis. So now I'm understanding better. Why is it that the FBI was not getting their information through the Uniform Crime Reporting System, right? Because it's there for years. Why is it that information from the local law enforcement agencies aren't making it through the system? So I'm beginning to pick up pieces here, and I haven't completed my analysis, but that's part of our work, is to understand and make some recommendations as to perhaps, our local law enforcement can make some modifications, right? So again, systems for me include hardware, software, people, and process. And that's how we are approaching this, is looking at the entire system, making recommendations to our local law enforcement and working with them. Now, the other thing too is I talked about grants. I don't know about your cities, but in our cities, our police and sheriff departments, they're not well funded. They're not well funded at all. I mean, they can use additional funding. So for these guys to pull somebody off the line to have them work a grant proposal, that's time away from protecting us. So what we suggested was, hey, I have people, I may not know how to do it, but I know other people who know how to write grants. Why don't we work together and we'll help you to prepare your grants? There's not a whole lot of money. I believe it's only like, I want to say a little bit over, right about $40 million for this act. So, if we can work effectively, we can get in there and then maybe get a few dollars to help our local law enforcement. And, one of my members said something that was really to the point. He says, Ken, we as the Asian community, we can do the mundane things to help our law enforcement officials help us. So yes, these things may not seem exciting or anything. I mean, these are administrative things, but we believe these are the things that we can help our law enforcement to do their job to help us. So what we proposed to the SAPD and the BCSO was that we want to create a formal agreement between our organizations with the Asian American Alliance of San Antonio and the San Antonio Lodge being the executive agent. That means that organization is going to take the lead for the Asian American Alliance in executing this agreement so that we can have a partnership against hate crimes and that we would have regular interaction, regular meetings with the sheriff and with the police chief to discuss and assess how we're progressing with this MOA and to make adjustments. So we are already moving forward with that. So on the 29th, we signed the agreement with San Antonio Police Department, and the gentleman with the nice hairstyle there, his name is Anwar Tahir. He is the president of the Asian American Alliance of San Antonio. And again, without his support and the support of the other 24 member organizations I don't think we could have gotten this done. And there's Christina as one of the signatories. And on the 14th of July, we signed an agreement with the BCSO. So now what does that mean? That means now the hard work begins. And we have already started working with the BCSO on assessing their systems and figuring out where is it that we need to focus our resources. And so we've been trying to work and figure out how to do the grants too. But unfortunately, we're told that, well, this is such a new program that the DOJ have not established those procedures yet. And I have gotten some feedback from Representative Ming's office that they will keep us informed of when this process is established so that we can work to get those grants for our local law enforcement. So anyway, I know I went through a little fast. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time getting into the nuts and bolts of it. But again, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you. If I have questions, answers for you. Any artifacts that we have produced as part of this process, such as the briefing material, background material on what statutes constitute hate crimes. And again, if you want to see a copy of these memorandums of agreement, I'd be glad to share them with you. Again, San Antonio, we have no background in doing any of this. But the way to start doing it was just to start doing it. You know, we saw a need for it and we just started saying, well, we'll do it. You know, if we do it wrong, well, we'll fix it. But I would encourage that each one of the lodges would consider taking some proactive steps, taking some productive steps towards solving this hate crimes against Asians. And, you know, if you've ever worked for the federal government or any government, you know that their policies and funding are driven by numbers. And as we see it right now, the numbers as they stand today in the UCR does not justify any funding towards solving or resolving Asian hate crimes. Because again, the special agent in the San Antonio area told me there were no hate crimes. So if there are no hate crimes against Asians, why would they spend any effort against it, right? So our effort here is to make sure that we get good data into the system so that we can get good policies and appropriate funding to help us. So again, everything we're doing here is to help us help ourselves, okay? So again, if you're interested in any of these documents, please send me an email and I will get them to you. Again, everything we have, we will provide you. So again, this is still, you know, work in progress, but the hard work really starts now. So, all right, and I'll open up for comment discussions.
This is Shu Wong in Albuquerque. Could I relate to the membership, what we are doing? And I do have an answer to your question about the uniform crime reporting and the reason why it doesn't work. Just coincidentally, the Albuquerque Journal, our local newspaper, had an article about our local FBI agent. And he says, yes, the uniform crime reporting system is not good. FBI is moving towards the National Incident-Based Reporting System. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, we briefly talked about it, but the problem is, Shu, is that if the local guys aren't feeding into the system, it doesn't matter what new system the FBI goes with. Garbage in, garbage out. We got to get the right information in there.
But I thought I would share that with you because this is what this agent, Raul Buhanda, said. If I could just relate what we have been doing here in the Albuquerque, New Mexico area. We were invited, the CACA, I guess last summer, because there was at the Holocaust Museum downtown Albuquerque, it was vandalized. And the director found out that the police could not charge it as a hate crime. It could only be, the offenders could only be charged with vandalism. But New Mexico does have a hate crime bill, and it has a few parts of it that I want to share with you. One of them is data collection, which is going to be reinforced and is going to be more powerful with what the White House has signed off. And also it has an enhanced sentence. So the punishment part of the hate crimes. But what it is that for the enhanced sentence, which is 2 years, it is for community service, treatment, or education. But the judge may apply the enhanced sentencing. It doesn't have to. It's not a shall. So, these, as you said, language is very important. What is also interesting is that, we rely upon the police, but looking at the training that our police academy offers to those police, the ones who are entering the police force, they only get 2 hours. And then in service for police and other individuals could be it may include hate crimes training, but it may not. It may just include ethics, so the understanding of what hate crime is, while there is a definition, I guess a couple of issues, do our law enforcement officers understand what hate crimes is? And secondly, do they apply a hate crime sentencing to the offender?
So great, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Great, yes. So great points.
So the other point that I just want, and I'm sorry to take up so much time, but the traditional process is the police, the prosecution, and then the imprisonment or incarceration. And what I think that we have talked about throughout this convention, and what we are understanding is that the offender many times is not held accountable. They don't understand what they did for whatever reason. So how do we change that around? And so I don't know how many of you have heard about restorative justice, but restorative justice may not be acceptable to everybody, but the restorative justice is trying to hold the offender accountable for his or her action, and to make sure that they can change and will not. So the recidivism with restorative justice is, as it turns out, is very low, but the research on restorative justice is minuscule, as I was reading on the research paper. So if I may, can I just read to you just quickly what restorative justice is? Crimes is a personal affront to the victim and the community, which creates an obligation to right the wrongs and make the community whole. Restorative justice shifts the focus from the justice system of punishment to addressing the victim's need and ensuring the offender is held responsible for repairing the harm caused and addressing the underlying cause of their criminal behavior. I just want to bring that up because there are very few restorative justice programs in the United States. I think that what we're going to see again is the traditional police prosecution and incarceration. But in the incarceration part, we should at least try to bring in some social services and trying to have the offender understand what he or she did is wrong. So the only thing that I can think of, and this is very simplistic, is that if you have a hate crime and the judge is able to enhance the punishment, the sentence to 2 years. So instead of washing, toilets, and using the Holocaust Museum, that offender would have to go and work in the Holocaust Museum. Maybe, clean the toilets there, but at least be exposed to the other Jewish people and also, the exhibits to understand that the crime that the person that he or she committed is totally wrong. So education and accountability is part of this entire hate crimes initiative that we're talking about. We just cannot talk about the preventive part because hate crimes are going to occur. How are we going to make the person understand?
Right.
So thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. You brought up some good points, and as Rick was giving his presentation, I was thinking, it's like, wow, hate crimes, hate acts, hate is really is huge. And if we were trying to address every portion of it, there's no way we could do it. It's like a kid, starving kid looking at a huge plate of spaghetti. he won't eat it because he don't know where to start. So for San Antonio, we understand this is our starting point here, and perhaps we can start working on these other issues. But yeah, you mentioned state legislation. So Texas has a same issue where it's after the person has been convicted of a crime that the judge may add hate crime sentencing to it. And what our sheriff is trying to do is to say, no. Address it up front. Don't address it after this, after the conviction. Address it up front. Make hate crime part of the criminal act, not during sentencing. So we'll be working with him and our state legislators on writing the legislation needed to do that, right? And you talk about training. So we have already had conversations with the SAPD police chief about what training the cadets are doing, right? And our intent is to be part of that training, is to give presentations to the cadets to talk about hate crimes and really get to know us a little bit before they hit the streets. So,
but the training,
big issue.
I just say, but the training has to be ongoing. It just cannot be, 2 hours when they're a cadet. It has to be throughout the system.
So part of the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act talks about training to their officers, right? And part of our work is to review that process, right? If it's just, hey, you get hate crime training once every 5 years, so no, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's make it every 6 months, every year, whatever, right? Whatever makes sense. So that's part of the engagement that we're having with our police organizations in San Antonio. So good points there, Sue. Anybody else?
So Ken, you bring a lot of good points, and what, I've had some conversation with some of our folks from the different lodges, and a lot of people, the first thing is, I think, how did they get started, right? How did they approach, people in the city council? How did they approach law enforcement? What is that first step that people need to take, and how do they get the data to know how many hate crimes are being reported in their district or their area?
Okay, yeah, no problem. So again, as I mentioned, when I started looking at this, I went to the Department of Justice website, and I'll send you this link. It's a Crime Data Explorer, and you can download the hate crime database. It's right here. Can y'all see that?
Mhm.
So I was seeing a link, but you can do filtering, and you can figure out within your county or your city or your state, what the hate crime statistics are, and you can get narrowed down to the racial profile of the victim and the racial profile of the assailant. Okay, so this is how I got to the information. But as far as what do you do? How do you engage with the local law enforcement? It's call them, email them, right? And what we did was, because we have a wide network of organizations, I asked, hey, Imar, send Sheriff Salazar a text that we need to meet with him. And he did. And then within a few days, we were on Zoom with him and his senior staff, right? Or with the SAPD, it was about sending them an email, right? Give them a call. If that doesn't work, get with your local council person. And fortunately, my councilwoman, she is the chair of the Public Safety Committee for San Antonio. So it was pretty easy for us, right? But again, it all starts with, you got to start and say, you know what? I want to do something. I'm going to send an email. I'm going to call somebody. But again, if you don't start, it won't happen.
So can I say something to, anyway, one of the things to think about is there is an FBI host section in the FBI training manuals and hosts for a long time, the police enforcement academies up here in Washington were advocating something called community policing. That was before we actually started seeing that term spoken more widely after the hate crimes and things began to emerge. So community policing, there's a whole set of concepts and rules of suggestions of how you do that. And the whole idea is to get police, first responders, all the sheriffs, the local police, other people, including firefighters, all together with community organizations that meet regularly or try to exchange ideas to understand one another on a regular basis before there is a crime, before there is an issue, right? And so you develop a relationship, as Ken has said, and many people have said, how do you get community how do you get police into the community to walk beats instead of driving cars when they can, to understand what's going on in the churches without a need for some huge talking head type of meeting once every year or something of this sort, but you have a regular meeting. So in Fairfax County, we had the county supervisor, they call him the head of the county. And Fairfax County is actually one of the largest county in the United States. It's actually one of the wealthiest and largest county in the United States. But she said, I am going to have this kind of an organization. So very much like Ken is saying, if you know somebody in the police force or somebody in that senior level, get together with them and say, look, why don't we have set up a regular council that meets on a regular basis? People can come in, it's all voluntary and so forth. In Fairfax County, we set it up as a volunteer, is a committee that actually a community organization that reports directly to the county supervisor, but it's not an official body. It's not something of this sort. So there are things to be said about how you have to report public meetings, and some of that is really streamlined. But we started meeting and doing things, and we started adding organizations. And I have to say that I was representing another organization, an Asian organization, which was represented Asians in Northern Virginia. And then one of the members who was representing a refugee community said, well, I'm going to go attend this meeting. It's the first time it's ever been done. They're going to call together to organize it. So I said to the membership, I said, we really got to go support, Fred, because it's the first time. If the county is reaching out to us, we as a community should step forward and show that we not only respect that, but we Asians should show up in numbers, right? So then having said that, then I then attended the meeting, the organizing meeting, and there was no other Asian, including the other guy that was doing. He was late. He got caught in traffic, but he never showed up. As a result, I got put on this council, which I really didn't have time to do. But it was one of the most productive group and collaborative group that I ever saw. Everybody wanted to genuinely understand underlying issues and try to address these things before there was an issue. And then when there was an issue, it became an advisory group for the police or the supervisor. It was headed by the most senior, and the county always had the senior police people there, sheriff department, fire department, the traffic people, plus also firefighters. So all these guys came together, and EMR, that was also another part of it. So then there was several organizations that continued to grow. I actually, because I knew the local FBI guys, I got them involved, and so there's that component to it. But we dealt with a number of issues, including like school resource officers. That actually should be, if you in your school district do not have a school resource officer, or you're concerned about things, how they treat students and so forth, and how police money is being used for that sort of purpose, then you gotta think about how that is to be done. But anyway, it allows us to talk about all these issues, and it's done in a very, very collegial way. And pretty soon, because we meet regularly once a month or once every 2 months, I can't remember, but we develop a relationship among us. So that you're on a first name basis that you can call the people that you're involved in. I would recommend that is something any lodge in the police, in the city area, or a larger unit, a county unit, you could actually do so that it doesn't become like a single a single meeting that tends to be sort of the talking heads and then they're gone, right? But it is a regular meeting that allows you to talk to issues. And we do things like community drives. We work together and say, how do we do a book drive this month? How do we get the police to go to this particular school and then take part in the school first day of school programs, things of this sort. So and so that's something that each of us can think about doing. Don't wait for something to happen. Approach your city person, like Ken is saying, or go to your county level and hopefully and say, look, we wanted to do this. We want to do it on a regular basis. And the whole point is develop a community police relationship. But one of the issues that I constantly talked about was how to recruit Asian officers, because Fairfax County is continuing to grow very fast in terms of the percentage of Asian. And it is terrible time recruiting police officers who are Asians to stay in the career. So that's something that we could advise them about. How do you recruit? How do you retain? And that sort of things. And we could talk back to the community and say, why is a career in law enforcement still a good career, an honorable career?
Oh, great points about, community engagement. You can't expect, folks to help you if you have never engaged with them before, right? So doing things like Ted just described, book drives, that's something that a local lodge can do to say, we want to organize something, right? Well, we can introduce the, police, officers to the community. San Antonio, we have our safe officers that's associated with every substation. And we have, citizens on patrol programs. So again,
and Ken is absolutely right. The book drives, you make sure the police will be involved, the firefighters will be involved, and they're in uniform, and they're purposely in uniform to show that their interactions with the community is not necessarily have to be because of some kind of a law enforcement issue. That they also engaged in that as well.
Invite them to your lodge meetings.
Yeah.
Buy them a cup of coffee, It's that simple.
Yeah.
So Ken, this is Sue Ellen. If I may share a little bit of LA's lodge's involvement.
Please.
So basically LA Lodge has started and also want to make sure that our voices are heard and any recommendation. The strategy is that LA is a big county, and then yes, we are focusing on the issues of Asian Americans. However, sometimes it's even more effective that we are collaborate with other. So LA, several members such as Eugene Moy, Wayne Ng, Munson Kwok, Paula Medicine, especially Paula, took the lead and got other organizations such as African American civil rights groups, the Mexican American Latinx, and so all groups that together, then they have conversation with the police department, and then they try to have established that regular communication with them. I think sometimes that also is more inclusive ways of raising the common issues that we all have. The anti-hate issue is not just only directed to Asian Americans. The stereotypical profiling, those are the issues, and I think that may be something that we can consider, that working with other organizations as well. And so I also want to say that applaud your efforts, and that it was really good. In terms of education, sometimes we don't want to wait until incidents happen, how to deal with it. It's the preventative education, right? Earlier this morning, I thought the Congresswoman Chu's presentation really gave us a lot more things that the Congress are doing, or hopefully that we can learn from it. And thanks to Ted that you posted that links, the guidelines for the assembly member. Shouldn't we be able to use that or share that or modify? Some of them are very simple, just to give them the guidelines, share with the police officers, say, here is something, and they can help us spread the words, and all our local elected officials as well. Because right now, I think some of the people probably want to help, but little things like that, perhaps they do, just need a little bit more guidance. And I really think that we could, focusing some of those education individual members wise, we can do that too.
Yeah. And, great points, Sue Ellen, because again, you don't have to make anything, huge leaps, right? It's take in small incremental steps, right? Every little thing helps, and it will help you make progress. And, in our approach, we are including all ethnic groups. Any ethnic group that's subject to hate crime, we're including in that. So, I'm a member of the police chiefs advisory group, and there are, Asians, Latinos, representatives from the NAACP, LGBT groups in there, and business group as well. So again, get involved. That's the first thing. Get involved. It could be just as simple as what Sue Ellen is describing, but we need to, and I would encourage you to start somewhere. I hate to be cliche, but you know what they say, every journey starts with one step. So take that first step.
King, this is Sherry from Houston. May I share something with you all?
Yes, please.
Okay. In Houston, we are already engaged with the police department. So we have the hate crime resource, contact number, and the point of contact specifically. And the other is that Harris County, also the third largest in the states, we also have that kind of resource. So our president, Alice Lee, also executive director of the Southwest Management. And I'm also part of the international district management. So the district, that is approved by the states. So you can have operate to help to engage with the police department, the fire department, FBI. So we have periodically have a training, not also for the community, for any citizens. We can join and to listen what the FBI's advice and what is the definition of a hate crime. So that is information is already across to the communities. It depends on the citizen or the people, they want to join or not. And before I retire from the utility company, that the Central Point Energy, it's electric and gas combined the company. We serve about 8 states. And my company also provide periodically the online class about the hate crime, sex harassment, and the policy ethic, all of that. So every 3 months, employee need to take that kind of information, make sure all the employee follow the policies. And the CAC in Houston, we engage all of the community to join whatever the free seminar, whatever provide, especially when the FBI county and the city of Houston police department, they have some kind of the town hall meeting, or they have some kind of presentation. That is information to get what is the public policy. Oh, we need to understand, we need to follow how to protect our rights. Thank you.
So great point. And what I would encourage you to do is, as you continue with your activities with the Harris County and Houston Police Department, is to really,
and
FBI, what are you trying to accomplish? With Project No Hate, what we're trying to accomplish is to get good data into the UCR so the government understands these are, they have the right information to act on it. If we, for example, if I have lunch with the police chief and it's a social nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
But we're working the progress. I mean, the process is to how do we get these departments
And get a
to
report.
review the
Yes,
system
yeah.
and to review
And so
the
build up
process.
the case. You build up the case, and depends on the situation of case and the age. So
Well-
we have Houston is really diversity, and for the young generation from the junior or high school, I talked to the Harris County Attorney's Office. They told me, Sherry, you don't worry about that. All these young kids, they come into the jail. I thought that they stayed there 3 days. They know within 24 hours, they already released. So education, I totally agree. The information, education, how to respect, most important. That need to be the fundamental of all the community.
Yeah. No, you're right. We need to have the continued interaction with our police forces. And
Yeah,
my
and we need to
point,
speak on the table. Whenever we can speak out, we need to speak on the table. Don't be fear of that.
yes,
Hey, my voice, nobody understand. Well, they need to understand us. We are the taxpayer.
exactly right. So my point is the focus of Project No Hate is to work with the police forces to make sure that they are properly entering hate crime information into their systems so that the information flows up to the FBI, and the FBI and the Justice Department can provide that information to our legislators, so when they can say, hey, Harris County, how many hate crimes are reported using the UCR, right? And if they say
and the other
6,
problem, because the shortage of the law enforcement or the priority, the case by case, some case maybe just disappear automatically, depends on the priority of that.
right.
And this
that's,
is my responsibility or our responsibility to trace on that case.
yes, and that is a tangent to what we're trying to do here, right?
Yes.
It's still part of the overall solution.
Yeah.
But the focus right now is to make sure that the right information gets entered into those databases, and we're helping them to do that. But now, as we have better relationships with these departments, then we can now have a victim advocacy group to advocate for the victims. And I think Rick on his slide, he had several of those organizations. And I know in San Antonio, we don't, not for Asians, right? So that'd be something that we can look at the next step. What is the next step, right?
Yeah.
So again, I've seen the involvement of Houston, Alice Lee, and HPD. So great things. And what I'm suggesting is that what are your expectations out of that relationship? And I believe you should be able to use that relationship to establish, a process to review how they are entering the data into their system to report to the UCR. Because if you're not getting the numbers in, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. All
So
the places
continue to
you need to
engage
get
with
the
them.
case number. Yes.
Yeah, continue to engage with
and
them.
that is our responsibility to trace the status of that case.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. But the
Because
statistics
people
needs
read
to be,
that case, they may see this is no priority. But for us, I'm a taxpayer. I'm the victim. This is my highest responsibility.
right. Yeah.
Okay, thank
so
you.
again, keep engaging, but focus on what is it that you want them to do for you, right?
Yes.
And I would say that for all the lodges. Yes, ma'am.
Ken, this is Elaine from Phoenix. I'd like to just add a few things of what's happening here in Phoenix. We have, there are like 10 community boards that are advisory boards to the Phoenix Police Department. I chair the Asian Advisory Board here in Phoenix. And, Phoenix has grown. We're like, I think, the 5th or 7th largest city now in the US. But as was stated earlier, because of limited funding, they cannot hire officers. Plus, they're losing more at this time as a result of all the attacks and against law enforcement throughout the nation and everything that they're doing and organizations trying to defund the police departments and so forth. But we have I feel that that the advisory boards to our Phoenix department is very good. We meet, each of the advisory boards meet at least quarterly to interact with the, we have a liaison officer for the Asian community. Actually, we have 2 Asian liaison officers. So if there's any incidents and so forth, you know, any one of us can contact him and share with him and let him, you know, investigate further into the matter. I've even had the Phoenix police chief call me directly on a couple of occasions when there were attacks on Asian individuals here in the Valley. And she just wanted to give us a heads up, what's happening, keep us posted. They didn't know yet if it would be considered a hate crime, because there are some clear definitions of what is considered a hate crime here in the Phoenix area. And there have been occasions where she'll call me back and she says, based on their interview with the victim and things that occurred, and then there might have been some video from a local business that captured the attack. She says, based on all this information, I'm considering this a hate crime. So again, I think, I know with our local police department, we have access to see their regular reports and crimes and shootings and so forth. Plus they send out as they can on a regular basis, videos, the video cams of what has happened throughout the Valley. So I think we have a good relationship with them, and they're always coming to us to ask us, you know, what more could we do? And then we always ask in turn, you know, how can we assist you further? I think one of the situations here in Phoenix, we don't have a lot of, I would say, Asian attacks here. There are some, but again, many Asians are hesitant to contact law enforcement to make that report.
Right.
And so, you know, that hurts us, because there's probably more incidents out there, but they're never reported. So, you know, we're working in baby steps and have been for a number of years, but I feel that we have a very strong, good relationship with our Phoenix Police Department here.
And I applaud you and the Phoenix Lodge for having that relationship. And what I would encourage you to do, right, is take to the next level, right? Ask the question, how is your information being reported to the FBI's database? Are you reporting it to the FBI database? Because again, it comes back to what I said earlier, which was, if your local law enforcement is not reporting it up the chain to the FBI, Congress is not going to take action to fund and make legislation, right? They have to have numbers. So ask your police chief to show the numbers that he sent to the FBI.
Yeah, and that is something I will move forward to inquire about. I think they do, but I'm not definite about that. So that was good that was brought up during this session, so that we can move forward and ask for even more information on how it's reported.
So I know for a fact in San Antonio that we had that attack and it didn't show up in the FBI database, right?
Yes.
So then, you know, I'm gonna have that conversation with the police chief and his captains, find out, help me understand your process.
Right.
You know, where did it not make the cut? Who made the determination that it was or was not a hate crime? And that's part of all the process, right? Remember what I said, right? The system is people, process, training, right? That's all part of the solution. Okay, so continue doing your great work.
Well, I think for everyone across the nation in CACA, I think this has been a wonderful discussion to raise the concerns and issues and what's happening in the different locations. So thank you.
Well, my hope is that this conversation has given you some ideas on how to take that first step in helping our community to make sure that the numbers are properly reported, right? I mean, I'm sure, if I get the feeling that most of our organizations, most of our lodges have a good relationship with their local law enforcement, but we need to take it to the next step, which is, are they reporting? How are they reporting those hate crimes to the FBI?
Yeah, I think this would be a perfect topic for our next quarterly meeting of our Asian Advisory Board, which is comprised of about There's about 20 members, and they represent different Asian AAPI communities. So I'm going to raise that with our Asian liaison that maybe we could have a discussion on that in our September meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, we took the route of a formal agreement, not that we don't trust the police chief or the sheriff, but we said, you know what, we need to document what is it that we're trying to do so that, let's say, 5 years from now, I go on to doing, I move on someplace else, right? That other people in our community can go back to that MOA and say, hey, look, you guys said you want to do this, and we said we're going to do this. So this is a informal contract between our organization and the law enforcement officials. So let's just stick to this, right? And we want to remain relevant, and we want to remain on their radar.
Right. So that we can continue to be a strong partner with the police.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every partnership has a contract.
Yes.
Right. So
thank you again.
Thank you. All right. I think I am over time now.
Yes.
Thank you for everyone's comments and input.
Thank you, Ken. That was a great presentation, and I'm hoping that inspires our local lodges to take that first step. And I think, as you heard, it's that first step you have to take, right? Understanding what's going on in your community, and then deciding to do something about it. It doesn't have to be a big thing, right? As Ken mentioned, it's an email, it's a text, it's attending a city council meeting, just to get started. And then, you take it from there. And every community is going to be a little bit different. You have to tailor it, right, to what works in your community. So thank you, Ken, for that. I think that was
I just want to give credit to one other group, and that's from the LA Lodge groups, because again, I've been hearing about how they've been trying to bring in allies into the efforts. And we've learned that, and we've included in the way that we're approaching this, because as you saw, everything that we're doing is not just the San Antonio Lodge, but San Antonio Lodge and XXXXX organizations. So the numbers are more meaningful. So thank you, LA Lodge, for your inspiration.
Thank you, everybody. So we're going to take a break now, so folks can get lunch or a snack. We will come back in about roughly 35 minutes at 2:10 Pacific time, to kind of continue talking about, Ted's going to be talking about Talk Stories, which he didn't get to finish yesterday because of the electrical storm. So we're putting it in here. And then afterwards, we do have a very exciting panel for you with Curtis Chin, Ken Ng, and Matthew Wang, and they're going to be talking about, there's Ken, talking about the Dear Corky film, The Rough Cut, which we will be previewing and having a panel discussion. So see everybody back in about 35 minutes. All right. Thank you. There'll be a different Zoom link.